Hit the start button. Time.
Oh yeah, you got the timer. Can you ship out the timer?
Yep. I threw it in Slack.
Oh, my bad.
All good. Here we go. This is Beyond the Byte with Joe and Abe, a cybersecurity conversation. In each episode, we get to know someone and discuss their journey, how they got here, and what they learned along the way. Through these conversations, we at Greylog hope to better understand what it means to be a good citizen within our community and continue our evolution as a cybersecurity solution provider. This conversation is sponsored by Greylog, an award-winning provider of SIM and log management solutions. I'm Randy, the producer of this podcast, and here are your hosts, Joe and Abe.
Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Abe here. And Joe, I have a question for you, buddy. If you were to take a guess, and I said that I took some time off, which I did. I took some time off.
Yep,
and
you
there was
did.
one thing that I promised I would get done during that time. That was it. I was going to do absolutely nothing but that one thing. Do you think I got it done or not?
Oh, that's tough because at this point I know you really well. Like, we've been working together for a few years, and in our week-to-week syncs, there's always one thing that we promise we're going to do before the next time we meet. And I don't think we've ever gotten it done in the one time that we were gonna.
That's partly why I
get it done.
All right.
I was going to say, if the answer is yes, this would be a boring intro.
The answer is yes. So there you go, Randy. And yeah, so
Ouch.
the one thing was I wanted to like clean up that like uncleanable like area where everything collects and it's horrible and it's junk.
Right.
And yes, I did want to get that done. Now, the part that made me giggle about it the most, I think, was the semester starts up. So I, like our guest, and I want guests in the past, I teach at the college. And I'm sitting there writing a bunch of the, introduction speak, like all that kind of formal stuff for the week one stuff. Number one rule to success: do not leave it to the last minute. Do not leave it to the last minute. And so there I was, cleaning up that tool area and uncleanable portion of my closet at 11:48 p.m. on Sunday before going back to work after 2 weeks off. But I did get it done after writing a whole bunch of life advice. Don't procrastinate. I procrastinated.
It's pretty good.
There we go. I did get it done though.
Yeah, so there's an element of ADHD, which I believe that you can relate with me on in this. So we both suffer from that superpower. And
I find just to throw in there, I had one objective as well this holidays, and that was cleaning up my email. Right, so similar to Abe trying to clean up his certain part of the room. And for me, a lot of times what it is it's overwhelming. It's daunting. You see these, thousands of emails. It's just do 10 a day. Just, that's it. Right. So even my wife, right, she'll be like, hey, clean up the garage. Just go out and throw one thing out and then consider it done. And then you look like a superstar.
That is a level of discipline that I have not yet mastered. Because I am much more in the Abe camp of let's do this last minute. I have an offsite next week with my team where I'm locking my team in an Airbnb for the weekend, and we are going to plan out our 2024 based upon everything the executives have said in the week leading up. And the agenda that I promised I'd get them about 2 weeks ago is still not done. And I want to consider myself better prepared than my executive co-workers in this. But it turns out I am not. I am no better than shout out to Josh. No better at planning offsites than you are, my friend.
That's awesome. Well, welcome back from the holidays, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be come out in March, but it's back from the holidays for us.
Yeah, and back from Happy St. Patrick's Day or Easter or whatever.
Yeah. Speaking of people that plan events, our guest today is a pretty exciting one. I'm going to let Randy do his thing before we get to ask my favorite question of this podcast every single time. And to be clear, I haven't asked it in 6 weeks. So I'm itching for it. So Randy, take it away, my friend.
Intense.
All right. So our guest today, well, what can I say about Mahdi Raza? If you look at his list of experience on LinkedIn, you're thinking, okay, this guy's got a lot of experience until you realize those are all his current positions. I think I counted 9 different initiatives that Mahdi is currently embarked on. You may know him as the founder and CEO of Siberx, where he's built an incredible community that includes and serves both the heavy hitters of cybersecurity within Canada, as well as fostering emerging talent. Through Cyberx, Mahdi hosts annual events like the annual CISO Summit that's happening in February, and the annual Canadian Women in Cybersecurity event that's really well attended and supported. He's also the co-author of the book, The Art of Selling Cybersecurity, and he's a professor of IT administration and cybersecurity at Seneca College. A common theme across all the initiatives that Mahdi's involved in is cybersecurity education, professional growth, and a dedication to an outstanding experience for participants in his programs. Mahdi Raza, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Greylock team. Thank you, Randall, Joe, Abe, for having me a part of this really cool podcast. Looking forward to having some fun over the next hour.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for being here. Thank you for slumming it with us for the next hour or so.
I look forward to it.
So we started this podcast based off of a singular idea, which the singular idea is that Abe and I were once practitioners, and now we've gone to the dark side of being a vendor, and we'd like to make that dark side a little bit brighter, and not be quite as vendory as the rest of us, as the rest of them. So one of the things, so we're a sim vendor. As part of my obligation to our CEO in this, I have to ask you, why does sim suck to you? And we can expand that question beyond just the sim itself, if you so choose, into the SOC, into security, whatever it might be. Why does the current state of security and sim suck?
Well, first of all, right off the bat, I mean, one of the things you said is you moved over the dark side. And I think what you're doing with this question is really understanding your customers' needs, really, right? And getting a pull of what people think. Why does it suck? I mean, first of all, we got to still establish, is it a sim or a seam? I find people trying to figure that one out in itself, which is a little bit confusing. Let me take a different angle to this.
Yeah,
so
please.
over the holidays, I took my son, who's 17 years old, and my 4-year-old son to Walmart because we wanted to buy a remote control car. So we bought a remote control car, and I decided to buy 3 of these little small remote control cars. And I didn't want to spend too much money. So I spent one of those cheap $15 remote control cars. Anyways, we take it home. I get the screwdriver out to put the batteries in, and the screwdriver won't fit. And I got a pretty eclectic collection of screwdrivers, and it just won't work. So my 17-year-old son comes downstairs and he's like, "Oh, you need a, whatever." And he says some sort of tool name. He goes upstairs, comes downstairs, and he's got this really thin screwdriver. So we actually use it and it works. And I said, "Where did you get this from?" And he comes back and he goes, "From one of my drones." And what's interesting about that, because I broke the first one. So the first one I tried to, finagle my way through, and it broke, and my son's looking at me, my 3-year-old, and he's like, "Why?" And so anyways, when it comes to sim, and the feedback I get a lot of times is a couple of things, right? Number one is cost, right? It is for the elite at certain times.
Yeah.
How can we make it more cost effective, more subscription based, more, offering, pricing that allows everyone to adopt this from a community and a collaboration standpoint? That's number one. Number two, the sims that I've seen, they're pretty ugly. So developing really user-friendly interfaces that are intuitive, that are simplified, that's number two. I think the other one is training and skills development. I find that there's not a lot of time spent on really educating the masses, especially those that are looking at entering into cybersecurity. And really the last one I would think is alignment with business goals, right? Really, we know that what a SIM does, how does it cross over to other aspects of the business that they can take that information, ingest it, digest it, and then make actionable intelligence when it comes to business. So I really don't think SIMs suck. I think really what it comes down to is it's like having that right tool. You need to have that right person that knows how to configure it, that knows how to put it together, that knows how to able to utilize it to have that remote control car work again. And that's really what it is. I don't know. Hopefully that answers the question of why it sucks. I don't think it sucks. I just think we need to educate people a little bit more.
I think that pretty perfectly sums up both a great answer to the question and also a lot of what I kind of assumed your perspective was going to be coming into this just based off your background, which is, the issue is not necessarily with the tools themselves, although agreeably the tools could be a whole heck of a lot prettier. Sims for some reason are one of the ugliest tools out there. But but I think you hit the nail on the head in that, it's kind of been an industry that's been selling off the idea that this is this premium tool and you need to, premium talent and premium everything around it. And it's gotten to be like kind of just a necessity for everyone, right? In a scenario like AV is or EDR or something, or a firewall or whatever. And it's time to democratize that in a way and make it a little bit more accessible, a little bit more user friendly, as well as, let's teach people how to use this thing. Like, I'm fortunate that I worked at a Fortune 500 company for my first SIM role, where I got to learn how to use it because they sent me to a bunch of expensive training. But not everyone that uses SIM gets that, right? Yes, 100%. You answered the question. I think it's beautiful.
And and we'd love to, one of the things that I think that this should be used in a lot of like capture the flags hackathon, right? Like what a great tool to have, right? One of the things my wife does is she makes bridal flower jewelry. So these intricate flowers that go, when a woman is getting married, and she has these little tools. They're very intricate. They allow her to do maneuverability on very delicate, the jewelry that she's making. And when I look at it, I realize how you need those specific tools to be able to do that. You can't use regular scissors. You can't use regular, tools that you would pull out of a carpenter's, box. So it's really educating. And one of the things she does is a master class, and she teaches people. And one of the things is they have to go out and purchase these tools to utilize it. And I think that's where one of the disconnect is. You have this generation of young people that are coming out of college and university. And I look at some of the curriculums, and Abe, you were mentioning that you teach as well. They don't really cover SIM in there too much, and nor do vendors come in and go, hey, let's talk about this. Yeah. So I think there's a major disconnect when it comes to education. And it just seems like the big banks, the big enterprises, the ones that got billions of dollars utilize it, which proves that is an important tool. It's just, if you don't know how to drive a Ferrari, you're going to spin out and slam into the guardrails. But if 100%. You know how to handle this powerful machine, you're going to win the you're going to win the championship.
Yeah, it is not the sexy tools that get talked about in cybersecurity 101 through 301, right?
So it should be. I really think it should be. And I'm waiting for that vendor to come out, and we know who they are that has this. Yeah. It's going to really come down to that level. And really, one of the other things that I think a vendor could do in a situation like this is help the cybersecurity poverty line. Imagine an SMB having some sort of drummed down SIM that can give them actionable intelligence and do the work that, a lot of people can't seem to get and figure out. So anyhow, it's a rabbit hole that needs a deep dive, and I know we got a lot to cover today as well.
No, we'll come back to that perspective, because I think that's an interesting point of your perspective as a whole, is kind of that view of, how do we help the little guy, right? And that's similar to a colleague of yours that we spoke to a couple weeks ago, Ali, and he has a very similar perspective, and I'm interested in kind of the similarities and differences between what you between you guys' motivations. This is where we pivoted in talking about your journey, and usually I start out with a question somewhere along the lines of like, tell me about how you got here. I'm going to change that question because I think the interesting thing that Randy brought up in your bio is where you are now. And I want to we'll get to your background, but I want to understand your motivation, right? What gets you up in the morning? What gets you rolling to a place where you've got like 9, 10 positions that we're listing out in your bio, and you're kind of approaching this similar problems, but from all of these different angles? What's your motivation behind that?
So it's you got to love what you do.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing I tell anyone. Everyone always says to me, "Hey, how do you you got to love what you do." I wake up in the morning going, "Yeah." Right? Like I enjoy my day. If you don't love what you do, stop doing. Period. That's my number one rule of life. So I love what I do. In that journey of love in cybersecurity, I come across, for example, I came across web-based security awareness training. Very important.
Mm-hmm.
But after speaking to people, they're like, oh, we get logged off. We have to click a whole bunch of buttons and then we go back on. How much did they learn? What did they retain? And I looked at it and I went, wait a minute. Gamification is the way you teach people things. So what did we do? We went out and built tabletop games. We built out video games that can be played to teach security awareness training so they can actually retain the knowledge and then action that knowledge and make it fun. How do you make education fun? One of the biggest challenges I find in the industry is, especially in education, everything has evolved. My iPhone has evolved. My pen has evolved. Education is still stagnant. You show up at 8:30, you go through a Rubik's Cube, you answer a whole bunch of questions, you leave at the end of the day. Very quickly, I'll tell you a very quick story. My daughter loves art, hates math, loves art. Art is math. So how do you take art and bring math together that gives her the aha moment that, now I understand physics. So I think the same thing comes with cybersecurity. We really need to talk about the importance of it. Yes, everyone's doing that. We have our months, we have all this sort of stuff. So the journey for me is really, Joe, at the end of the day is how can I help the industry? And so if you look at the 9 different, variables or career opportunities, these are all places that I looked at and went, wait a minute, we're still doing things like we're stuck in 1924. We have to do something different. And so when I look at it, that's what we do. One of the things that we have is a call center here, a cybersecurity call center where we do lead generation for companies. Now you're wondering, well, what makes us unique? We hire students that are studying cybersecurity. So that's number one.
Okay.
So now you have product knowledge. Number 2, we're giving them soft skills training because that's unfortunately what Generation Z and X lack, unfortunately, is soft skills. Once you give them these 2 tools, these folks are assassins on the phone because now it's not a third-party call center calling who sells vacuum cleaners and, a whole bunch of other things. You're actually speaking to Randy or you're speaking to Joe or Abe and you're talking cyber, which makes it extremely effective. So again, taking a look at a problem, figuring out a solution. If you look at my Rolodex on my businesses, that's really what my journey is all about, is taking problems, bringing solutions in cyber.
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting because I think one of the things that's unique about the way that you've approached this is that you've taken a very human element to solving the problems, which is opposite of the way that I think the industry has historically solved these problems, which has generally been a very tech leaning, tech first kind of solution. And you've been able to tackle some really interesting problems. And I agree with the do what you love and you'll be able to do anything. I think Abe and I can attest to that working at a startup and how that can be trying at times. So let's, I have a couple of things I want to dig into there, but let's back up for just a second.
I want to take a shot for a second
Please,
here, man.
go ahead, Abe.
All right. Okay, good.
Go for it.
Good. First off, right from your intro, that was awesome. I'm looking forward to this because you came right out of the hop and said SimSuck, partly because of education and partly because, training and skills development. 99% of the time, someone comes in here and has an answer revolving around, maybe product or engineering or sales or the industry at large. And you literally rattled off 5 out of 6 answers that fall under my responsibility at Greylock. So we're going to make this a fantastic podcast. and including a CTF that we have, which I'm hoping to, I'd love to, trade notes on with you at some point. I've been to Cyberx events, and when you say you love what you do, you can feel that in the air. Like there's not a person there that doesn't love what they do. And I had the good fortune of going to one in my backyard in Oshawa. Actually, it was the and
Oh, nice.
I think we've crossed a lot of paths. I'm actually kind of surprised, when I saw your name come up, I'm like, how have I not met you? We know a lot of the same people. But what I'm loving is seeing that, as Joe, I just want to basically compound what Joe said. You could tell that what you've built so far has kind of the end goal in mind. And so your goal is to, empower students in cybersecurity and build that up. Your goal is to empower practitioners with your events and to empower CISOs with your events. And you could tell there's an outcome based on it and not just, a cash grab or an advertisement and I think that really resonates with the value and the quality of the stuff that you put out. And for that, I think that's, like I said, I just wanted to kind of like say that part is clear and I love it. And okay, take it away, Joe. I forgot what I was too. All right. Just to keep going, just to see what happened there. Just to see what happened there. I'm really distracted. I got a new keyboard over the holidays, and normally I could type like a ninja and take notes as I was going. And Randy's like, I can hear the thunder clocking. I'm like, so now, like, I'm gonna have to go find like a pencil, like a caveman right now. I have no idea what to do with myself. This is where I like tee up my questions because Joe talks for 20 minutes, so I love to like tee up my questions and come back to it.
I would never do that.
No, you know what it is? It's technology really, it's a quote, right? Technology makes us human.
That's right.
I really think, and unfortunately, and I think the pivotal moment for me was COVID. And really at the end of the day, we were able to enter people's home in a unique way. We were able to become human again. And I found up until COVID, it was just this rat race. And myself, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life that I've always worked from home. So now I was watching people transition from office to home. And I realized really technology has really grounded us. Now you have a 5-year-old using Zoom and a 90-year-old using Zoom. Like, when would that have ever happened? And I think we have a unique opportunity to humanize technology. So a lot of times, even when I speak to people and, a lot of times it's cybersecurity and it's, oh, your data, this and that. I go, look, I got a question for you. Your luggage, when you pack your clothes in your luggage, you put a lock on it, right? You zip it up. How would you feel if you had it open and everyone could see everything inside? People are like, oh my God, right? So you do that for your luggage, your underwear, but you won't do that for your data. Like, how does that compute? And a lot of times people will, so I think we're at a unique point where we really need to educate humanity on a very dire situation. And that is, we're hours away from the world being shut down. Like, really, imagine for a moment. I don't know if you guys saw the movie recently, the one with, just came out on Netflix. They Lived With Us or something like that. It's a cybersecurity breach that occurs. Right. Very powerful. I had a few friends watch it that are not in technology and they're like, can that really happen? And I was like, yeah, that can happen. They're like, what would we do? And I'm like, well, those are the questions, right? So I think we really need to humanize cybersecurity. And that's where I like to take that angle, is bringing that human element from our volunteers who join cybersecurity and get a job all the way down to our CISOs. So I'm glad, Abe, you were able to bring that up.
I think that's an important element. And I think one of the pieces that I think misses a lot of the public and even misses some of us in cybersecurity is, and I'm going to take something you said earlier around, your daughter's into art and art is math and math is art in some ways, kind of back in the background, and that you can use that experience to learn other things. We don't understand on our side that the attacks that are happening in many cases are a matter of survival. on the other side, right? Whether that's survival as in actually like feeding your family or defending your country or whatever that might be, the motivation behind these attacks in many cases is intrinsically deep. And it brings people from all walks of life into that role. And we always ask ourselves, like, how are these attackers so creative? Well, because we have artists becoming attackers, right? Because we have people that have financial backgrounds becoming attackers. And so I think the perspective that you have around bringing this to humanity and making this a human problem is one that is incredibly real. It's something that we talk about internally to Greylog in a large capacity, which is how do we make our tool, our approach, our the problem more accessible to more people so we can solve it in a broader space. How, from your perspective, does the industry need to change in order to make that idea of humanizing and bringing this idea of cybersecurity as a humanity level problem forward and allowing the industry to really embrace that level rather than just following the rat race of more profit, more VCs, IPO, please, those things.
So where do I start here? I mean, I think it has to come from the top, right?
Yeah.
It's our governments. Unfortunately, we're dilly-dallying our way through a catastrophic potential issue. It comes down to the governments. I mean, why are we not teaching in grade school cybersecurity, like just basics, password management? Every kid has a password, right? Do we teach them? No, we don't. One of the things that we developed was cybersecurity escape rooms in Oshawa and actually in Ajax, in Canada here. And we had 3 escape rooms built out, a home, an office, and a hacker's room. And we had students coming in there and just basically teaching basic cyber password hygiene, right? How easy it is to brute force someone's password. We're not teaching at a very educational level. That's number one. And I get why. There's no money in it. There's other fish to fry. We got geopolitical issues, geoeconomical issues. When are we going to now sit with all the teachers and teachers got issues on their own with things that they have to deal with? We're adding something. I mean, we haven't dealt with financial literacy for years, right? We give students credit cards, and they go rack them up and they're in debt, right? Where does cybersecurity fall into that scope? So number one is it has to come from the top, which is your corporations. It has to come with public-private partnership with federal government, provincial government, municipal governments. And I know the US is doing certain things, but if we look around in India, if we look around in Israel, we look around in other places, we should be learning from what they're doing. And so I think that's where our biggest problem is, number one. Number two is academia. Unfortunately, universities and colleges are still stuck in 1950 with their curriculum. Like, why are we not changing the curriculum? One of the courses I teach, we have them do essays. Which tech person wants to write a 500-word essay, right? We should evolve.
Yeah.
And so I think there should be an evolution when it comes to the education out there. These curriculums that are built out with 4 years, at the 4th year, when you're done, you're stuck with technology that's 4 years old. Like, come on. Number 3 is education when it comes to being accessible from a financial standpoint. It is very expensive to get your certification. Why? Why are we not offering grants? Why are we not doing a lot more to help out younger people when it comes to education as well? The other thing I think, and the last but not least, is financial programs for SMBs. Canada is made up of 98.4% SMBs. That's under 100 people in Canada. No one has cybersecurity. Really, what do they use? Norton Antivirus, McAfee, ESET, basic stuff that you just plug in and then that's it, right?
Yeah.
Why are we not providing military grade, enterprise grade, going to vendors like Greylog saying, hey, look, here's some financial funding, build out something that works for an SMB. Let's help the cybersecurity poverty line and let's push it up so that everyone is equal. There's justice and equity across everyone. We can vaccinate everyone for free in the world. Why can't we give everyone a little bit of security?
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that through this podcast I have found myself in this moral quandary that I often bring up here, which is this idea of, hey, we're a vendor and we sell cybersecurity products. Our 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 driver is to make money for our shareholders, right? And that's ultimately the end goal of the corporation. But me as a cybersecurity practitioner and as a person that cares about this is recognizing that this is a massive issue, right? This is a issue that is so much bigger than the people that can afford our tool. And how do we reconcile between, well, I have to make money for the shareholders because that's how I put food on my table. But if we allow this, this gas pipeline subcontractor to go without, that suddenly all of the gas in the US and Canada is gonna get shut off because someone will have, encrypted every pipeline out there, right? Or something along those lines because of this subcontractor that exists, right? These are very real things, and they're things that have happened. I mean, we had the Colonial Pipeline, a year or two ago, that actually did get shut down for a reason.
Well, and I just had a baby, and I was going to the doctors frequently over the last 4 months, 5 months, and, different x-rays and this and that. And I'm sitting there going, it's 2023, right? And we still are not locking our computers, like basic rudimentary things, right? Or your passwords, you guys, user 123. I literally typing up user 123, and now you have access to everything. And I'm like, well, you have all these, issues happening around the world, especially the healthcare vertical, but people don't care. It really, people don't care. And how do you change that mentality? And I think it has to come from top down. You got to put certain laws in place. You got to put certain compliances in place. You got to start fining people. You got to really, really take this as a serious matter, a critical matter that can be life and death, really. But for some reason, no one cares. Everyone just wants to make sure Netflix works, the dispensaries are working, and everyone's happy. Hey, we're happy.
I think I want to challenge you just a little bit on that. I'd say there was a point where you could easily brush it off and say that there wasn't any initiative, but I think you're getting a little harder on that one. I think like federally we have what's it called, it keeps changing names, so I probably can't find it right off the bat, but I think it's called Cybersecure, and that's a pretty solid resource. I mean, that's a large to-do list and more or less along the lines of it's not SANS, the CIS controls top 20, and so it's a top 10, kind of like the Aussie Defense top 3, and so it gives you some tools. Now, of course, some of it is wave your arms and security harder, but but there, it's a step. It's not bad. And if anyone is listening that's from the government of Canada, I just pulled it up, and there's still like things on there that say like, bracket insert date. Like, come on, guys, I'm trying to plug you here.
That's what I mean.
And it's,
but this is what it is, Abe. Like, we're still like, we don't care because that site was put up because it was supposed to be put up, and then that was it. Now here's the solution. Like, so I am hard. You're right, but we should have a militia. Who are militia? Our students right now. We have thousands and thousands of students that have completed university, college. Guess where they're working? Walmart, Tim Hortons, Starbucks. Like, they're working at these not low level jobs. That's not the right word, but they're not working in the field that they should be. We should be utilizing our militia, our soldiers, which are these volunteers. Imagine if they called up SMBs and said, hey, SMB, we have a great site from the Canadian government called Cybersecure. And then businesses are busy. They don't have time to go, oh, okay, let's talk about cybersecurity. No, we will do an assessment. We will come in and find out. We'll find out how many endpoints you have. What are you using? Blah, blah, blah. Let's put something in place. And then not just leave it there. Let's come back a week later. Mr. Customer, do you see on the top right-hand side? Do you see that little red button? Those were 3 malicious attacks. Oh my God. Yeah, we stopped it. That could have done this. Oh my God. What do I do next? Well, you should do this next. And now the education starts slowly because people are busy. They don't have time. An SMB doesn't have time. SMBs have gone through COVID. SMBs are losing business. Mortgage rates are up. Geopolitical, blah, 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 right? The last thing on their mind is, let me figure out the spam that's coming in. And so I think we have a unique opportunity to sum it up of thousands and thousands of students that are unemployed or working in different environments that the government, instead of spending money on war and a whole bunch of other places, we should work at home. Let's upskill our students at home. Let's give them the tools to start calling small businesses and adopting the same rhetoric that the government is saying about implement this, implement that, this certification, this, that. Let's educate our own citizens. That's really what it is. And I know that will probably get me in trouble, but hey, I like pushing the wire here.
No,
on
I'm with you.
things.
If we can get in trouble for it, let's do it. And I think what's like, I love the idea, and even just thinking of like a practical execution of that, you could start. I mean, you'd have a major hurdle of hi, we're a group of students from Seneca College, and we want to help you with your cybersecurity. And I could see a couple. Your script would take some work at the start. I don't want to buy a vacuum or whatever you're selling me. Go away. Like the But I think feeding back to an institution like Cybersecure, or I know the U.S. has some great ones too. I was good friends with a few people in Michigan down there, and what's their they have like a whatever junior cyber sheriffs kind of program. I forget what it's called, but they have a cool cyber militia program down there, and but I know it's state to state. There's nothing national. And I think you'd get the feedback loop then. So if you start utilizing that, here's thousands of students that are all looking for internships too, and here's some practical experience, and now you're feeding it back to, hey, cybersecure, by the way, someone's going to send an email, fix that insert date thing, right? Like, and
And that's it.
here's your here's the control you just suggested, but that's literally impossible to do, or the wording's really vague. Like, what do you mean by this? And yeah, I think.
Well, what's the number one the number one problem that students have is what? Experience. Right?
Exactly.
They always go, I don't have enough experience. Well, let's give them experience, right?
Yeah.
This is the way you do it. So yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that solution. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think
Now, just to add to that, like, as I said in our call center, one of the things, the line is, hey, Abe, my name is Mahdi. I'm currently studying at University of Toronto in threat intelligence. I was wondering if I could have 5 minutes of your time to talk about your current SIM solution. And believe it or not, 80 to 90% of that time, the person goes, oh, no way, UFT, what do now a conversation begins, because it's a cybersecurity practitioner speaking with another person who's studying it. It's relevant now. Versus someone just calling up and just saying, cyber, they don't even know how to spell cybersecurity, but they're trying to talk to someone in that profession. So I think the scripting, you're right, absolutely. But you'll be very surprised, and I'm sure you guys know this, that the cybersecurity community is very helpful. So if you say, hey, I'm currently working with the federal government as a volunteer program of the part of the cybersecurity militia, to calling up to help, increase your cybersecurity posture, people are gonna be like, oh my God, great. What can we do?
Yeah, that's and like I said, I knew there'd be fantastic answers within that, and plus there's the two phenomenons. Someone will know the name really well, better than me, but nothing makes someone give you information faster than thinking they're imparting it on you, right? So if you come up and say something that says, I sound like I need some information, such as I'm a student studying, then they'll put it onto you. They'll do it double fast if you're just slightly wrong. And so it's my favorite website on the internet is reddit.gov. And then just watch people lose their mind, and and so, but I think there's a lot to be unpacked there. That's great. That's awesome. Let's do it. Let's start a student army. Let's go. I'm in.
I know.
I think it's
And imagine with that. And imagine just very quickly, imagine like in Canada, we don't really have this. If we were hit, our critical infrastructure, what's going to happen? Right? Imagine the public, the private organizations, you and me, all of us. The moment something happens, we know what to do. Right now, we don't. Right? So there should be some streamline, something from the federal government that goes down to the provincial government, that goes down to the municipalities, just very streamlined, that the moment shit hits the fan, I am to go here now and help out with this environment, right? Because it needs all hands on deck. Are we ready for that? No. I mean, there are certain organizations that do that, but we're not seeking the counsel of the general public, of professionals like us.
Well, and that's it. Like, where can I throw my name down as a 20+ year veteran and also jump in on this, right? But other than CyberX.
So for example, St. John's Ambulance, I just joined the St. John's Ambulance, which is a volunteer program that when a catastrophic event occurs, I am called in to help out with whatever the situation is. Why don't we have that for cybersecurity?
Yeah, I think that there was a study that was done several years ago, and it was kind of in the post. It was it was kind of in response to Donald Trump being elected in the United States, to get an understanding of where the mentality behind the MAGA movement comes from, and it was this understanding that about 50% of the population does a really good job at understanding risk that doesn't necessarily directly affect them,
Hmm.
but kind of creating enemy out of something that they can't necessarily personify. And about 50% of the population needs an enemy in order to feel
Mm.
moved towards something, right? And it's a trend that we've seen in history over time, over and over and over again. And I guess that's a question that I have for you, which is, everything that you're saying is fantastic, but in a lot of ways, hey, we do PSAs for, okay, now the PSA, instead of saying don't smoke, says, don't share your passwords or something like that, right? How do but but that's still only going to reach that group of people that can understand that risk, right? We still have people that smoke to this day, and they think that smoking is good for them because their great grandpappy lived to 103 and smoked every day in their life, right? um how do we bridge that gap? How do we make the threat actually real when something can't be seen, it can't be understood? Either there is no dramatization that you can play on the news to make this feel real in a way that is going to mobilize people in a similar way. Or maybe there is, maybe you do have ideas around that.
One of the things that we've been doing quite a bit of is tabletop
Yeah.
exercises, and we do them across different fields. So even students, right? We ran a tabletop exercise for a bunch of 12-year-olds, and it was Santa Claus, and it was a theme. It was a really cool theme, et cetera, et cetera. But the point there was just teaching basic
Mm,
cybersecurity hygiene, right? So that's what that. At least now you start that nugget, right?
mhm,
Or so that's where I find is gamifying the training. So the moment
mm,
you have that training, let's not put a slide deck up. Let's not, slide deck by design. Let's gamify and interact. Let's get the conversation going with these people. One of the projects we're working on later on this year is retirement homes, the most vulnerable,
mhm,
right? Again, gamifying that, not through electronic means, but actually a board game. So they can have some fun with it and understand that, hey, that link that comes in, don't click on it. Why? Because of this, this, this. I think it's really educating. And we all know, when you read something, you only retain 5%. Then you hear something, you retain about 10%, 15%. There's this retaining level that keeps
mhm,
going up and up and up. And one of the fastest ways to retain something is to stimulate it. I understand what you said. There is an invisible
mhm,
enemy. You can't really put a name to it right now. You can't touch it, feel it, smell it. But running these tabletop games over the last 5 years, and we've ran over about 500 of them, and we ran these with publicly traded companies that their CFOs and CEOs come in and they're all like, oh, I'm not playing a game. Right. And after 10 minutes, they're having a blast because now they get to kind of, be themselves and bring out that, here it is, that creativity when they were 5 years old and they used to play, tag, right? That was fun. And it brings out that inner childhood
right.
inside them, which all of us have. And how do you get to that? And so one of the ways I find is through gamification.
Mm. I think I think that's a great answer, and I think one of the things that I've been excited about meeting you around and meeting Ali around has been conversation with Randy around this gamification idea, and how do we actually take that and expand it now as a privately traded company, or as a private company, right? Now how do we take this to the next level and use this to help educate our customers and our users and our the people that now are part of our open source project and all of those things, to actually look at a way to give back, right? And look at a way to help increase this, because there is this risk matrix that all of us cyber practitioners build in our brain over the years, where you kind of like can take any problem and you can put it into this matrix, and you can determine, well, what is the risk level of this, and can I accept that, can I not, can I whatever, right? And it kind of intrinsically lives in our brain, and then we often do this through risk modeling and other things. um
Well,
Please.
and just very quickly,
Yeah.
we have to look at the generations, right? You have your silent generation, baby boomer, generation X, Y, Z, and now you have alpha,
Mm.
right? And alpha right now is in that like 10, 12 years old range. We have to build our education understanding those different generations because they learn and understand differently. What you teach alpha is not going to work with generation X.
Of course.
So, even our gamification that we've developed, our video games, for example, we've developed video games in a way that they're very Call of Duty like, Minecraft like for a specific target. And then they're very basic, realistic for a specific target. And so you really need to understand the different generations.
Yeah.
And that's the only way you'll be able to get to them.
Yeah, I think it makes total sense. It makes total sense. Let's pivot to something that you brought up prior to prior to us starting the recording, which is some of the geopolitical situation that we have out there. Let's just dive straight on into that topic and not avoid it whatsoever. As you're looking at Canada specifically, being that you're there and the 98% small business, what are your thoughts and fears and concerns and things like that around this unrest that exists elsewhere in the world, and how do you feel like it bleeds into specifically Canada, and then we can talk about kind of how it affects the rest of the world as we go on.
So, I mean, a lot of people are not aware of World Economic Forum holding Cyber Polygon, which are these tabletop exercises that were held in 2019 and 2020 with governments around the world, along with large enterprise, et cetera, et cetera. And what they did is they ran a breach similar to a COVID, which is, the whole world was shut down. And the catalyst was, IoT devices, right? That we're all connected to, et cetera, et cetera. I've always been a cautious person. And for me at home, for example, I have a ham radio. I have, all the right things in place and right down to my kids knowing that if the electricity went right now, what do we do? Why do I live that way? Because living in cybersecurity, I see the vulnerabilities and I see the stupidity of people. Are we heading towards something catastrophic? Yes, I believe so. All the signs are showing to that. It's now really relevant. I know it's very cliche. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. I think we're there now. And so that's where we're at. Now, add and compound geopolitical issues that are happening around the world. We're heading towards an election in 2024, right? We know shit's going to go down. It's already January 1st. It already started, right? Like everything's on hyperscale. And so you have the broadening war in the Middle East. And I was in Saudi Arabia. I was in Lebanon. I was in Syria. I was in Iraq just this summer. And I was seeing some of the issues that were starting to kind of escalate. Are we ready from a Canadian, infrastructure? Yes, our banks are ready. Yes, there's certain things that are ready. That's where money comes. But from an OT standpoint, is our water safe? I don't know. Is our nuclear power system safe? I don't know. I don't think so. Because, Rogers went down in the summer this year. It's our telecom company here. And people lost their mind within 5 hours. Imagine after 3 days of anarchy that would hit. I don't know if you guys remember back in August, like 15 years ago, we had that blackout that hit the Northeast coast, right? And that was summertime. Imagine if it hit today, right? What would you do with weather? So to answer your question, is it scary? Yes. Is that the enemy right now that we should all be really talking about? Yes. Should the government right now be prepping people about, how to sort of maintain, when something goes down? Yes. That is a great opportunity to teach cybersecurity awareness as well, because that is the threat. Your critical infrastructure going down. Why? Because some idiot decided to click on something which caused a compound effect that affected us all. So, there are times when my internet doesn't work and I'm like, oh shit. And then you reset it and you're like, okay, we're good. But it is something that every day I think about. And I think we as citizens should be thinking about this every day, especially with the geopolitical, geoeconomical situation, especially in 2024, that's heading towards us in a very scary way. one more thing I'm just going to say very quickly. Hackers, right? I think the definition has been sort of eroded. Really, to me, hackers is an innovator. It's the person that created fire. It's the person that created the wheel. It's the person that created the pen. It's the person that created, telecommunications. It's the person that created these innovations of how to do things differently. Facebook, guess where it's located? On one hacker's way. Zuckerberg sent a letter out to his group of folks when he came on, when they went public. And he said, look, we're not going to change anything. We're going to still continue the hacker's way. And so what I'm trying to say with that is the threat is innovative. The threat is working 24 hours a day.
Mhm.
The threat is motivated by money. The threat is motivated by power. The threat is motivated by ego. The threat is motivated by so many things. And unfortunately, our motivation is a 9 to 5. And then at 5 o'clock, the person checks out, goes home, watches Dave Chappelle on Netflix, and it's fine. I'm done. Whereas the threat is working 24/7.
Yeah.
What are we doing to combat that? And that's what's scary.
What's your call to action on that? What do you recommend? That's a lot of alarm. What could I do to be slightly more prepared? How do I grab my cyber rifle, so to speak?
Well, great question. And I think there's two ways to do that. And so for me, and I've been screaming this for many, many years, and I'm going to continue to scream this, and that is major changes when it comes to federal government and just the way we dealt with COVID, right? What did we do? World Health Organization came in and said, boom, and made everything change overnight, right? Everyone in one unison was shut down. You couldn't do anything. That's the way you change it. You need a major change. And unfortunately, you know what's going to happen, Abe? We're not going to do it. We're only going to do it after, just like anyone else does, right? Every other cybersecurity, every other vendor does the same thing. Once the shit hits the fan, now they need a SIM solution. It's like, why wouldn't you put it in before? Why do you have insurance? Why do you have anything, right? So I think the answer to this question has to be a global G20, at Davos or any of these events that these guys go to, just like we deal with climate action. We should have a cybersecurity action where all governments by 2025 need to follow these compliances that are unisons right across, with education, with infrastructure, with posture, everything. That's the only way to do it. Or you're going to be left holding the bag.
Mhm.
I like
agree.
that. So go ahead, Joe.
I agree. It has to be more than performative, right? We've seen a lot of things over the last couple of years in the US that have been very surface level in this, right? Where we've seen a critical infrastructure executive order come in for cybersecurity, and it's good, but it doesn't go anywhere near where it needs to go. We've seen the SEC step in, and what do? They put a form on their website and say you need to report your breach within so many hours. And what happens? The attackers start reporting their breaches, right? And sending fines to people, right? So we need something, and we need something larger. And I think to your point, like it needs to come from government, but it needs to come from government in a way that it's actually coming from the experts that exist within our collective industry and collective community, and not something where this is this is being taken on as though it's the next thing that Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to scream about to get on Fox News or something along those lines, right? Abe, what do you have, man? Yeah, I'm sorry I stepped on your toes. I didn't ask a question purposely so you could.
No, I think that's yeah, there was kind of there was two halves to that. One was, yes, you can have a level of involvement, but then the other half was, it might be a little late. And I think again, I'm just going to kind of push back on you. Thanks for being a guest, by the way. I'm going to push back on you again a bit, and I think there's there's at least one thing to draw out of that, and if we say that it's going to take something really big. I mean, one of your examples was, why do you buy insurance? Well, at some point along the way, a lot of people's, let's go with fire insurance. A lot of people had their stuff burned down. Rome burned down. A lot of things burned down over the years. Somebody decided, hey, I can charge you a monthly fee and help you rebuild it if you don't burn down, or if you do burn down. And but along the way, eventually, there was someone that bought the fire insurance that had never been burnt down, right? And so now it's quite normal. Somewhere along the way, somebody had bought automobile insurance before they had a car accident. And now it's become more or less standard, right? And I think along the way we can start building towards that. So when we rather than saying, it's going to take something huge and we're never going to get it done, but at the same time, let's get it done and let's educate and let's train. Let's I think there's more hope in one of those, and I think there is a lot of ways that people can kind of volunteer, and I mean, you yourself have put together an absolutely phenomenal group, and if there are calls to action on things like that, and if it is as simple, not as simple, but if it is as straightforward as let your politician know that you need a cybersecurity plan, like I run a dental office or a cafe or whatever, and I don't know what to do. Make it clearer make it so it's a header on my tax return. Everyone gets taxes there. Now everyone's seen it, right? And I think small solutions like that will start inching us towards it. Will it be too late? Hopefully not. I mean, you mentioned nuclear, man. I think we're both pretty close to one of those. So let's make sure it's not something else first, not nuclear. Let's leave that critical infrastructure for at least a while yet.
Yeah, and just very quickly, I know you asked about the geopolitical, and I know wherever this goes, here's a 10-step plan. It's very quick. It's very, I'll simplify it at 100,000 feet, right? Number one is develop national cyber strategy. Really, that's comprehensive, that aligns with geopolitical objectives. Number two, prioritize critical infrastructure, right? So let's figure out energy grids, transportation, healthcare, financial. Let's develop a robust contingency plan. Number three is intelligence and surveillance, right? Let's really start spending our time and money on developing mechanisms to monitor potential geopolitical cyber threats. Let's bring in public-private partnership. Let's bring in organizations like Greylog and all of you guys that specialize in this, right? International cooperation. Let's bring in, we love meeting about a whole bunch of things around the world. Let's make an actual effort in developing an international, some sort of cooperation, some sort of cohort. Let's develop a robust response and resilience drill. Let's run simulations, just like how we run fire drills. Let's run a simulation if the world or if Canada shut down tomorrow. What would we do as a nation, as a country? Let's start taking our money, instead of putting it into wars, let's invest it back into research and development. Let's put it towards universities and colleges, so colleges and universities don't have to go and beg for money. Let's give them money. Let's enhance our capacity building and training. Let's, do a geopolitical risk assessment. Let's find out what is F and what isn't F, right? Let's get a report so that the citizens know this is where we have problems and this is where we don't. I think if we can do that through, I sound like Vivek Ramaswamy now, but through truth and actually speaking the information and telling everyone this is how screwed we are, that's when you can get buy-in of the citizens.
That sounds way less defeatist. I like it.
I like it.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. You made me happy.
Cool.
That's what are we on to
Thank
next,
you.
Randy? This was an awesome conversation, man. I'm
you
looking at
have
the
the
clock.
final-
That's all.
You have the final question before the lightning round.
I
Yeah.
do. Oh, I forgot it. Oh, yes. Look, and a big shout out to Mahdi, because here he is with 19 jobs on his resume. Says he has a kid just this weekend, and he's dropping the ball less than me. And I just had 2 weeks off, and I cleaned a closet. So well done. But if you were to give advice, now you've given tons of huge, awesome advice. It's rare that we're honing in on more specifically here. Usually it's backing the conversation out a little bit. But if you were to give advice to other cybersecurity vendors in this space, what would be some of the biggest advice you'd give out right now from your background and expertise, from your position?
I think one of the things that you guys are doing is really cool, right? You're understanding customer needs, and you're openly talking about. You're not hiding behind some wall.
Mm-hmm.
I love the question, why do SIM suck, right? Because you're really tackling what the problem is, and you're finding out. So I think the number one thing, the first and foremost, is understanding specific customer needs. The other side is, I think what's happened is there's too much focus and pressure from your shareholders companies are no longer human anymore. We're all running towards, hitting that bottom line and the numbers. And, every week you hear of a new company being bought out and a new company being sold and mergers and acquisitions, because at the end of the day, I get it. Capitalism, I get it. Money, I get all of that stuff, right? But at the end of the day, if you're one of those vendors that are doing that, you're ruining it for all the other vendors. So I think really establishing those lines, those clear cut lines to really demonstrate value and efficacy. The other things are really building trust, right? We do a lot of events and, a lot of times I see the dirty side of the cybersecurity world when it comes to sales and lead generation and a whole bunch of other stuff. Stop all of that, right? There's a lot of money to be made. There's a lot of food to be eaten. Focus in on what you're good at. Michael Jordan used to take 500 shots a day. Why? Because he was great at, what he did. I think we really need to focus in on building that trust. I also think giving back, right? Focusing on our education. Everything doesn't have to make you money. One of the events we hold is called Canadian Women in Cybersecurity. I call up vendors and I say, hey, vendors, we would love for you to sponsor so you can support this. You know what they say to me? Two things. Number one, oh, we don't put money into women events. Why? It doesn't make us money. What kind of backward thinking is that? Or number two, hey, you're calling me, I'm a male. You probably want to speak to my female counterpart. What kind of backward mentality? And us men that don't attend these events, right? For example, why? Because, we're not going to make any money. Oh, it's only women. We really need to change our way of thinking. So I think as the vendors, we really need to invest into education and awareness. It just doesn't have to be about money all the time. There's some vendors that I deal with that see the forward thinking. When they invest in capture the flags, guess what? 1,000 people have now played with your tool. In 3 years, they're the ones that are going to be recommending your tool. But unfortunately, that country manager or that sales manager, he don't give a shit. He just wants to make his money and hit Q2 results, right? So we really need to change a little bit of that. And last but at the end is adopting, ethical and responsible practices, really. And I see a lot of that kind of slowly eroding away. And you're getting that a lot because you're seeing a lot of garbage enter the field of cybersecurity. And what I mean by garbage is people just looking for a quick win. They just want to make money because they're like, oh, this is the new flavor of the month. Let me go make money over here. I can go and take this 3-week course and suddenly make $175,000 a year. It doesn't work that way. So I think really vendors have a unique opportunity in this unique ecosystem to be the apex, right? To be the wolf, to be the lion that really builds this community, because the vendors are the ones with the money. The vendors are the ones that allow us to put on events. The vendors are the ones that can dictate the conversation, that can be the thought leaders. So I think if, and there's certain vendors that do a really good job out there of that. We just need more. We just need more of these folks out there.
Yeah. And I think, yes, 100%. I agree. I think you're hitting the nail on the head of exactly why we started this podcast, right? Was this idea of like, the vendors are not, they're not doing what we need them to do. They're not holding their weight as part of the community. Right. And I think to your point earlier, there's also a government part of this that isn't holding its weight as part of the community. But I think, as a whole, as vendors, we need to remember that ultimately innovation and profit and all those things are going to come from having a better market to sell in. And it's our job to go and make that market better educated, better prepared, better understanding of their own risk. Right. And ultimately more diverse and more and what's the word I'm looking for? I lost it there because I was just thinking about how I needed to transition this to Randy. But
the vendors
have such momentum.
These are the guardians. You are the guardians. You are the stewards. You are the leaders. 100%. You are the, it's very interesting. Wolves, the way they operate. If we look at how wolves operate in that ecosystem, I believe, and if anyone wants to go research about wolves and how they operate and their family and all of that stuff, vendors are those.
Yeah.
And within this ecosystem, you are the apex. The problem is there's a lot of bad apexes out there, right? And it gives a bad name to folks like you guys, what you guys are doing out here, which is having real life, like that question, I think is such a powerful question. Why do Sims suck? what a way to kind of figure it all
Yeah.
out. So hats off to you guys to take that bold
Appreciate it.
move. Hats off to the shareholders, stakeholders who allowed you to do this, because I know a lot of folks would not allow this. They'd be like, no, we're not going to ask that question. Why not? Everyone else is asking it.
Mhm.
Let's talk about it. So hats off to you
We
guys.
just had to let them
Appreciate
listen to
it.
2 really good episodes first, and then remembered to ask permission. That was
Yeah,
The-
yeah. I cashed in a whole lot of political clout for that question.
I think since we're talking about something good, then
Yeah.
who's knocking it out of the park, Maddie? I know we're way over time, and then we're going straight to Randy because that's that's the segue. Who is knocking it out of the park? Who do you think? You said there's a few doing it really, really well. Let's name and fame. Let's.
You know what? I'm going to take a hats off to a gentleman by the name of Cyan from Siberx.
Okay.
Which they do Active Directory, right? Active Directory. Who wants to talk about Active Directory, right? And so they're a company, Israeli company out in the US, and Cyan is running their Canadian operation here, and he gets it. But you know, one of the reasons why I think he gets it, he's Generation Y. Right. So he understands the value. And so we've been running Capture the Flags with him for the last 3 years. We're using his tool within our Capture the Flags. And these students, guess what they're doing? They're using his tool for free, and they're learning it inside and out. And then he gives them $500 as an award for the prize, and they're ecstatic. And from that, you know what happens? They go to these Capture the Flags, and then they get hired for a job because at these events, they get notarized, and then they go end up working. And then 2 years later, 3 years later, just recently, he called me up. He said, remember that one volunteer that we had run the Capture the Flag 3 years ago? They recommended our solution at their organization. Yeah. Talk about organic sales, right? And forward thinking and giving back. I just want to sum it up. In life, and this is for everyone that's listening, we all know there's a creator of something, whatever you call it, Big Bang, Allah, God, Buddha, whatever you want to call it. Something created the moon. Something created the sun. Something created all of these things, right? And sometimes when you give back to that creation and when you help that creation, good things happen. So get in front of it, right? By helping students, by helping those looking to enter cyber, by giving them the tools, just like my son gave me that screwdriver to help with that remote control car. I was able to play that game. Do the same. So as vendors, I encourage you, and I know you guys are involved in a lot of this, and we would love to have you in a lot of our Capture the Flags, but this is the way you do it. So Siberx is one of them that I just wanted to right off the bat because they're doing a perfect job of it.
Awesome.
Cool.
Good job, Siberx. And yeah, that's on prioritizing long-term growth over short-term gains. Go ahead, Randy.
All right. Well, I think we should all collectively take a deep breath because
I know.
because we've covered a lot. We covered literal life and death stuff, but this next segment promises to bring this conversation to a whole nother level. Yeah, this is a level that's not about the money. It's not about geopolitics. It's not about the coming cyber apocalypse that we need to prepare for. This segment's literally not about anything. It's our lightning round. So let's prepare. Putting 90 seconds on the clock, Maddie. Get ready to answer each question as quickly and concisely as possible, because we will not be keeping score and prizes will not be awarded. Are you ready?
Let's go.
All right. Star Wars, Star Trek, or Doctor Who?
Star Wars.
Yeah.
If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Invincibility.
What's your go-to brunch order?
Pancakes.
If you weren't in your current career, any of them, what other job or profession would you choose?
House father, housewife, house father, homemaker.
Ooh, yeah.
Nice. What's the most adventurous thing you've ever done?
I've been to Lebanon just recently, going through Syria, through the Golan Heights and through the no man's land, which is a border, goes right through. You have Jordan on one side, Israel on one side, Lebanon and Syria behind you. Very cool thing to do. Very scary as well.
Nice. If you could work anywhere in the world for a year, where would it be?
Dubai.
If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be?
Michael Jordan.
What's a common misconception about cybersecurity?
That it's easy to do and you can just go and learn a couple of courses and you're good to go.
Nice. And what's a common password people should never use?
Dog name or pet with an exclamation mark and their date of birth. Last 4 digits of their date of birth.
Nice. And that, I believe, is a lightning round. What's the word I'm looking for?
Record?
Finish?
That's the word.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think this is you're the only guest that's actually taken the lightning part of it seriously.
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
That's what it meant. Lightning. Like
100%.
answer quick.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
Like, I don't
You
think
killed it.
Randy got the whole question out with Ali. It was
Yeah.
and then 90 seconds of response.
Exactly. From one pancake lover to another. Thank you so much, Mahdi, for being on the show. This was a fantastic episode, and yeah, I'm really interested to see what comes out of this, what comments and stuff, and super excited about opening up the relationship between Greylog and you, and also just Abe and myself and you directly, Mahdi. Very, very interested in everything that you guys are doing. And super eager to help the community in any way that we can. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And thank you for having me a part of your journey. And I look forward to continuing to be a part of that journey. And I appreciate your time, all three of you. And we look forward to seeing you hopefully soon in the future. Thank you very much.
100%.
Thanks, man. That was awesome.
And yeah, and Randy's going to add where we can find everyone in post. So thank you.
We always say that, and I never do. All right, I'll hit stop.